Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Sandy Allnock, and today I'm going to be talking about my phenology wheel. And there's something that's been going on in the phenology wheel that I'm excited about. I watch how long the days are when they get longer and then when they start to get shorter. And that goes for the nights in the reverse. So the nights are getting longer, and the temperature outside, when it gets down to 58, 59 degrees where I live, that gives the house more time to cool down. Therefore, I am wearing a sweater, which is what I do in the mornings, either a sweater or a bathrobe, because it's chilly in here. By this afternoon, I'll be in a tank top and screaming about how hot it is. But for now, I'm enjoying being in a nice, cool studio. But we're going to talk about this month's phenology wheel and whether or not this topic is actually a difficult one to paint or an easy one to paint, and why I tend to find it simpler than most topics. Let's get going. I want to start with a quick flip through of my phenology wheel book, which I put together because I took it somewhere and needed it all kind of compact. I have an intro page, and this one talks about what phenology is. It's a study of nature over time, not just of nature in general. This is I call it my table of contents with one picture for each month. And then each of these other pages has enough pictures for each day of the month. The first month was all greens in January, and then I did skies in gouache in February. In March, I did birds using pen and ink with some markers. These are water-based markers. And then I switched over to watercolor for April. And you can see each one has a seasonal theme to it for that month. In May, I did trees, and this was in alcohol markers, a couple different brands as I went through the month. And then I switched to colored pencil just to see what that would be like in order to create these teeny tiny flowers. They were all like the little weeds that I would see all over the place. And then we've got my mom's hydrangea bush that she gave me, just watching it for a month. The month of August took me to gardens and garden shops all over the area, trying to find different ferns for each day. It was very difficult to do. A few of them I had to work just from photographs because I couldn't find a physical one to go see. But this month is going to be lichen, or lichens, which is the plural, or lichenes to be technical about it. But lichens are kind of a mossy sort of thing, and you may see them all over the place where you live. We have them everywhere. This is several different kinds. Each one of these is a different lichen. And rather than do this one today, I found a tree that had just one type of lichen on it so that I could focus on one for the September 6th slice in the phenology wheel. And that's this guy. And it's at least got, mostly one shape in it. I can eliminate some of the others that are in there because I'm trying to keep each day focused on one type of lichen. So in order to identify it, I use the iNaturalist app. And you can see here that I've already identified a bunch of things in there, and this is the one that we're going to be looking at today. But I thought I'd show you how it works. You tap on the photo thing. You can tell it to go look in your camera if you don't want to go take a picture at that very moment. Choose your photo, and it will tell you what it is, and it'll show you some alternate photos so that if it picks something that maybe isn't exact, you can tell by what other photos other people have uploaded. But this is going to be a shield lichen. So I'm going to put the photo here beside myself while I paint this one in. And normally I don't work on my phenology wheel out in the field while I'm out walking because it's kind of big. It's a 12-ish by 12-ish, I think a little bigger than that. And it's cumbersome to try to paint outside with. So I work from photographs that I take while I'm out. And sometimes it's on my regular walk. Sometimes it's when I'm going to a park or I go somewhere special. Like last month, I had to go to a bunch of different garden centers to try to find some of those ferns. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about lichens, but first about how I got interested in them. I had these spots on my sidewalk My neighbors all had them too, but they were in really weird clumps. So you'd have a bunch of them and then nothing. And then over the years, they would grow. And people would use all kinds of cleaners on them. They would try to scrub them. They would use, and just this year, I kind of tried to get as much off as I could using my power washer thingy. And they're just like determined to be there. So I was trying a couple of years ago to figure out what exactly these were. And there was a guy on YouTube that loves moss and lichen. He has a whole channel all about going out looking for moss and lichen. And he's the just most excited person in the world and lives here in the Pacific Northwest. And I just got addicted to watching his videos because he would research these and find out what they are. And there are a gajillion different types. So let's talk about what lichens are. A lichen is not a single organism, and this is from the Googles, but rather a composite organism arising from a symbiotic partnership between a fungus and one or more algae or cyanobacteria. The fungus provides structure and protection, while the algae or cyanobacteria perform photosynthesis, creating food for the partnership. These hardy organisms can thrive in extreme environments, growing on surfaces like rocks and trees, and are useful as indicators of air quality. So if you have them, it means you have good air quality. So it's nice to know that my sidewalk has really good air quality, I guess. So there's just all different kinds of things you can Google about them. But the kind of lichen that is on my sidewalk are crustos or crustos. I don't know how you say that. And these are tightly adhering types of lichens that are on surfaces. So they appear like a crusty coating. There are others that are foliose. So they're like flat and leaf-like as the ones that I am doing here in this painting. And then there are fruticose ones. They're shrub-like. So they have hairs or tufts. So they're more three-dimensional. And I've been finding all kinds of them all over the place and using the iNaturalist app to identify what kind they are. So it's been a whole lot of fun working on this. And the reason that I say these are very easy for me to paint, because I was wondering if this is going to be hard or difficult, but after like 6 days of doing this, what I realized is that they're incredibly forgiving. You don't have to get a picture of lichens looking like what the actual lichens look like. Like, I don't have to actually trace this to try to make it look exact. I can get the general vibe of it, the general gist. So you can see there's some hair-like ones that are sticking out under the phone. There's that on the day 4. There's one that's more like a flower, so it's more of the 3D kind of thing. There's all different types of these. And as long as I get the character of them, that's really what I want to capture. It'll be interesting in future years to be able to look back at this phenology wheel and see if there are different kinds of lichens that I find in the future. Does this change over time? And that's what phenology really is. It's looking at how things change over time. It's not just, hey, I want to draw a picture of this thing that lives in my neighborhood. It's trying to look at that item in nature and see how it's different. And what I wanted year 1 to be in creating this phenology wheel is my baseline. So this is, my first one that I'm going to do. I'm going to do something a little different next year. I'm not really sure what it's going to be, but I want to approach the same topics again next year and go back and look at what I did this year and see how things are different. And I've also, in each one of these, I've recorded the temperature, the high temperature and low temperature each day, as well as the sunrise and sunset. And that is how I calculate whether the days are getting longer or shorter. And it's amazing to see that, like, when you get to the place where it's going to switch, so the days are going to get longer or they're going to get shorter, like everything slows down. But as you get a little bit further along, like right now, the acceleration of how fast the change is getting much bigger than it was at another time of the year. So there were some times when you would have the same time for sunset over, 3, 4, 5 days. now the sunset changes by not just 1 minute a day, it changes by 2 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes. It's going to increase, and those times are going to change more drastically as the days are changing, like in bigger ways. So it's kind of this really interesting cycle, watching how the day length changes. And it's just gotten me much more aware of my environment that I'm living in and what's going on around me and paying attention to it. I don't really know what else I'm going to use for my phenology topics for the rest of the fall. There's a couple ideas I have. One is maybe wanting to do a winter bird, so that might be in December. And I want to see what birds are here at that time of year versus, when I did the birds earlier this spring. And right now I'm noticing very different birds are at my bird feeder than there were in the spring. I mean, we just all of a sudden got a whole bunch of blue tits. I don't know where they came from. I have not seen them, but now they're there. And it's possible we've had them in past years, but we didn't have them until this time of year. So a couple of weeks ago, they started showing up. So it's just interesting to see nature changing. And that's really what phenology is all about, is noticing those changes. And yes, documenting them, but you can do phenology in your head if you're just watching things and you don't want to sketch it all out, just paying close attention. But for me, it helps to draw them, to write them down and that sort of thing, so that I get sort of an overall sense of it and I remember things better, because now I'm finding myself going back and looking at some of these different phenology wheels and revisiting them. If I've seen something again that I know I painted or sketched earlier in the year, I'll go look at it and see what it used to look like and what it looks like now. Watercolor with pen and ink, whether I do the drawing in pen and ink first or do the drawing in pen and ink later, tends to be my favorite for creating my phenology wheels. Just something about it is quick for me to do, and I like to just get it done early in the morning if I can and move on with my day. I don't want to spend all day long working on these, and I can get one of these done in like 7 or 8 minutes or thereabouts, get all the information put in and move on with my day. If you'd like more information on phenology wheels, join me over on Substack, where I've put together a basic 101 on how to get started. And next year in January, I'm going to start a year-long nature journaling class. And I'm going to be putting some skin on that in the coming weeks. So if you're interested in hearing more about it, then just hang on here at YouTube and come watch my videos. And as we get closer and I start figuring out how that's going to work, I will let you know what to put on your wish list for Santa, so you can do some nature journaling with me all year next year. The links for Krabby and for the pen and the brushes and the watercolors and the paper and the ink and everything, all in the doobly-doo down below. And the link for Substack as well, where the specs are listed for making one of these wheels. And I'll see you again in a couple of days. In the meantime, go out there and create something every day.